advance. We might be a little challenged with noise, but I'll drop off. I'm going to drop the graphics down and bring John up and see how we're doing this week in New England. There we go with John.
And good evening, Bob. How are you? Tell us where you're at tonight, because every week it's like, where in the world is Bob Zagami? And I know last week I was in Connecticut and you were in New York or Texas.
Yeah, I'm at Fort Lauderdale Airport. I thought I was going to find a quiet spot, but I didn't. So we'll keep the intro short, and I'm going to let you start interviewing Linda Maillard from Seacoast RVs, and it's a good little topic that we have tonight. So let me bring Linda up.
Hey, Bob, before we go to Linda, I just wanted to tell you about the trips that I've made over the past week with visiting most of the dealers in New England. And I just want to tell you that I have met a very enthusiastic group of dealers. The other thing I found is that their lots are filled. And even though they've been selling more and more units than ever before, the weather in April has caused a little bit of a backlog on the lots. And now is the time. Yes, now, ladies and gentlemen, is the time. If you want to hook a deal, I hate to sound like a used car dealer, but if you want to get a great value on a brand new or pre-owned RV, go to your New England RV dealer member, because they've got product and they're willing to sacrifice profit to move some units.
I'm going to cut you there. I want you to start. Hello, Linda. Glad to see you. I've got to move out of this area, so you're going to be talking for a little while, and then I'm going to come back on. So I'm going to put up that, and John, take away the interview, and I'm going to come back in a little while.
Thank you so much. Linda, how are you up in Maine?
I'm doing swell. How you doing, John?
Good. Let's get the weather situation first. There is no snow there where you're at now, right?
There is no snow left right now. That's correct.
Okay.
A couple of weeks ago, that would have been a bit of a different story.
Different story. But I'll bet you if you go to Portland and you come in off of 295, there's a giant snow farm that the city builds every year when they take all the snow there. And last year when we went in there in June, there was still a little bit of snow under all the dirt and debris. But that's the beautiful part about going to the great state of Maine. You never know what you're going to come across.
Yeah, you got to love it.
Yeah. Linda, tell us about Seacoast RVs, and tell us why you're a little bit different than most of the dealerships that you'd find here in the Northeast.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on. My husband and I started Seacoast RV 24 years ago. We're actually getting ready to celebrate our 24th year in business, so it's pretty exciting for us. And one of the things that makes us unique is that we specialize in park model sales for new RVs.
So you and I know what park model sales is. But there are a lot of people out there that know what the unit is when they see it, but they might not be aware of what a park model is. Tell us what the, not the legal definition, but tell us what the social definition of a park model. Well, there we go.
Yeah, so a park model is actually the only type of RV that's built specifically for destination camping. So it's designed for someone that wants a weekend getaway or maybe a 6-month getaway set up in a campground somewhere. They don't feel like traveling in their RV. They can get in their car after work on a Friday night in a couple of hours, perhaps be at their destination, and their things are already in it. There's no setting up to do. Your clothes are in the closet, your food's in the fridge. You just turn the key and you're ready to go.
So basically, I guess for technical reasons we can't say it, but basically this is a second home.
It is a camp or a cottage because it is, technically a recreational vehicle. So it's designed to be used recreationally like a camp or a cottage. And some people do use them up in this area for 3 seasons, but believe it or not, we actually have sold some that people use as ski cabins.
Oh, right. Okay. A little bit different. I know Bob is showing some of the photos. Can you see the photo on the right with the construction of these units?
I can.
These are really homes on wheels, because they're using real 2x4s. They're not sliced up 10 different ways like you'd find in some other units. And when you walk in them, you get the feeling, and I know the many times that I've been in them, both at your place as well as the units that you bring to shows, you get a feeling of stability. So there's no, you're not rocking on the springs or anything like that. And describe that.
Right. As you mentioned, the construction is very similar to a residential home in that it has 2x4s in the sidewalls, 2x6 on the floor joists. It has trussed roof rafters. Everything is 16 inches on center. They have header beams above all the windows and the door locations, vinyl siding, a regular house shingle type roof. So it is very solid. It is very sturdy, like you say.
And when you're sitting in it, watching TV or on your computer and that type of thing, you have no idea. I mean, you really think you're sitting in quote unquote a real house.
Absolutely. You have all the comforts of home in many cases because they're built so modern and they look so up to date today. Most people are telling me that, they're actually nicer than their primary residence that they live in. So kind of fun.
Now, Linda, when you're at the show in Boston, the big show in New England, and people come in, you generally situate yourself right at the kitchen counter. What is the most common reaction that you get from people when they walk into one of your units for the first time?
In a word, it would be wow.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
The 10-foot ceilings have a huge impact on the space. So even though these park models are only 400 square feet, they have generally a massive amount of windows. And combined with the 10-foot ceilings, it makes it seem like it's huge inside.
We want to say hi to Jerry. Jerry's down at Cape Cod, and we saw him last week. He's done at Majors RV. And Jerry, welcome. One of the photos that Bob is putting up is actually Bob's unit. And you have the capability to really extend the footprint of the property by, or the living space by adding what some people would call a sunroom and, a real deck. And you can get, quite a unit when you add those two components to it, right, Linda?
Oh, sure. And most parks do allow those. The width of it and the length of it may vary, but for example, where Bob's at our resort in Old Orchard Beach, the town of Old Orchard Beach allows a 10-foot wide sunroom, and it can be the whole length of the park model. So if you imagine another 10-foot by maybe a 35-foot addition.
Another 300 square feet.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Are those usually heated and have power in the sunrooms that you bring in, or is that an individual owner's choice?
It is an individual owner's choice, but most people do choose to do that.
Okay. Now, as far as Seacoast is concerned, you guys kind of have a little different situation because not only do you have the park models available for sale, but you also have a beautiful park that people can have their unit transported to, set up, and then you really become part of the community.
Yes, and actually we built that Seacoast Resort property after being in business for quite some time and learning sort of what our favorite features were of different resort campground properties and putting them all together to try to make one that we thought would be the best. And in our opinion, it is the best.
We also want to
talk about the different configurations. Let me just put up a...
Oh, Bob was in for a second, but he got out. I don't know. Oh yeah. So there's your lot.
Yeah, that was last week with the snow.
The snow. Okay. So are all those units exactly the same, or they're wide?
That was last week, and all the snow is gone. How many park models, when your customers show up for customer appreciation days this weekend, how many park models will you have on display?
We have about 17 different ones in stock right now.
That's amazing. And you'll have I think you'll have a display in the parts and accessory store on Seacoast Resort, which is
okay. Linda, Bob's having some technical difficulties, but let me pick up where he left off here. We had a couple comments from our viewers here. Michelle had asked, is there a septic system? How is that set up if they're not, a traveling RV? And what about the taxing, the tax situation? How are they?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, can you hear me, Linda? I didn't hear you at all.
We can hear you now, Bob.
Okay.
Bob, let her answer those questions there, and then Bob's We should say Bob is at the
back
airport.
up again. Could you explain Seacoast Resort and the park model living that you offer over there?
I would love to do that, Bob. And you know what? I'll start off by answering a couple questions about how the septic and the sewerage works.
Okay.
So all the park models that we have in stock actually come equipped with black and gray water holding tanks. However, at our resort, those are not required because our resort property is actually on town sewer and city water.
And that makes it a lot easier as far as
That's true. And you also have paved roads when you put them up on the lots also.
Yes. Yeah. Keeps all the dust down, and it's nice when you're driving around and you don't have all the dust coming in on your cars, or when you're keeping your windows open, you know, that road dust coming in through the windows also.
Sure. How many units do you have left up there? You've done an incredible job the last few years filling in the units. And how many actual lots are left up at Seacoast Resort?
I think we have about a dozen or so left right now.
That's amazing. That is truly, and how long have you been building out the resort?
We have actually been working on it for about 10 years now.
Okay. And Linda, who's the target buyer? Not the target buyer, but who has been the buyer of these units? Okay. Yeah.
The typical buyer really is just about anyone. I would say probably, though, that the meat and potatoes folks probably tend to be about the 50 to 65 range. We definitely have some families in there as well. And there are a lot of families that do destination camping because time is precious and everyone is so very busy. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot to be said for getting in your car, driving somewhere for just an hour or two and everything's ready. There's no other prep work or, setup to do when you get there.
Linda, tell us the geography of Orchard Beach.
Let's go back to, if I can put it up here, your customer appreciation days. And did it come up? No.
In answer
it's not coming up.
To the question, though, our resort property is just about a mile from the actual beach itself.
You hear the background noise?
Where is a 2-hour delay to Boston? So, Linda, Jerry asked.
This is, I think, if you don't have a problem, Linda, I apologize for the background noise here, and we seem to have lost John.
No, I'm here.
It's probably uncomfortable for the viewers, and probably for you too, because it's
Linda,
not really hitting on all 8 cylinders tonight. Can you hear me?
Linda sees me.
Would you mind if we reschedule this broadcast?
Bob and I, Linda, tell them.
Can you hear me at all?
Bob, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Bob.
I'm going to text him. Linda, in the meantime, Jerry asked a question about, are there any sites for transients? And I think that's a very important question.
That is a great question, Jerry. No, actually, our resort is only for seasonals only. It's all seasonals. And the season runs May 1st through October 31st, which gives you a full 6 months. But for the safety and enjoyment of the owners and the residents in there, we have no transient sites.
Okay.
Can you hear me now, Linda?
I can hear you, Bob.
Okay. I think to be fair to you and to be fair to the viewers, because we're having so many technical difficulties tonight and we've already lost John, could we reschedule you for another time after?
Bob, if you can hear me, John is alive and well, I can assure you.
You can see him?
I can see him great.
Can you hear him?
I can hear him great.
You can hear John?
I hear you and John.
I cannot even see John. All right, John, I'm going to drop me off, and I'll put pictures up and let him ask you the questions, because I'm not sure if he can hear me.
Tell him
he can hear you. He can hear you, Bob.
Okay.
And I can see him too. Tell him to go get a snow cone.
Bob, get on that flight to Buffalo. We'll be fine.
So Linda, I got to let you in on a little secret, and also our viewers as well. I planned this so that I could do the whole show myself with you.
Oh, thanks, John.
Anyway, so Linda, Seacoast is a really interesting facility. Let's go over to the park now, to the resort.
Okay.
You can hear me. Okay, now it says I'm in the show, but I've been in the show because you could hear me anyway. So watch. Here comes Bob again. Here comes Bob. Hi, Bob. What do you want? What do you want now? Okay.
Bob.
Can you hear me?
So
I
Linda,
can hear you, Bob.
tell us about
But
the
you're getting
community.
the background noise, right?
You've got a beautiful
Are you
clubhouse.
still here, John?
I
Bob,
can
we're
still
fine.
hear John, and he's asking me questions. So if you could be quiet, we're doing
Okay.
fine over here.
Bob, even though this is being recorded, we mean that in the best possible way.
That's
The beauty
exactly
of it
right.
is we've got people from, in reality, from Maine to Florida and Massachusetts in between. But it's not just a park. It really is a community because everybody seems to know each other. You've got the community room, you've got the pool, you've got the hot tub, you've got the big fire pit. Talk about those amenities that are part of the park that you might not think about asking.
Sure. And as you
Right.
mentioned, it is more of a community. We have people who have moved over from more traditional types of campgrounds where they do have transient sites. And even they might have been on a seasonal site, but they had transients around them. And they've actually said to me that moving to our park has changed their life in so many ways. One of the things is, in all the years that they may have been at their previous park, they've met and know now more people than they've ever met in the whole entire time that they were at the other park. Because people just, sometimes have the tendency to keep to themselves, whereas the atmosphere at our resort is nothing like you've ever seen before, because it is like a neighborhood community, because the
Right.
faces don't change.
Yeah. And I noticed one of the things when I was there doing some photography, people walk around a lot. And as they're walking, they don't get a lot of walking in because they stop at each house and talk to the people there, say, especially at the start of the season, how was your summer? I mean, how was your winter in Florida and what did you do? But it really is a community. And the other thing I want to say, and I think it's a selling point, is gated community as well.
That's true. It is gated. We have actual, sort of residential iron subdivision gates. So that is nice. It's not just one of those old red gate cards that you've seen with a post that goes up and down there. It's a beautiful entrance when you come up to it. And as you mentioned, there is a community fire pit, and that's one of the places where people tend to get together sometimes, is at the community fire pit. And then sometimes people have propane campfires at their own individual lots, and people do kind of wander around a little bit at night sometimes.
But it really is. I mean, campgrounds are great, but this is not your traditional campground. It really is like a second home community, even though officially on paper they are campers. I personally think, and I said this to Bob a few years ago, I personally think that park model RVs are the best value in second home housing, bar none, because basically you can buy them wherever you want, buy them from you folks and then deliver them. You're not required to move the sold unit to your site, right?
That's correct. And I think it was Jerry that joined us from the Cape Cod area. As a matter of fact, last Friday, we delivered a park model to South Dennis down on the Cape. So we go all throughout New England.
Okay. And that's important to realize that you do deliver.
Absolutely. Down as far as Rhode Island. We'll be going to Rhode Island again in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Is Rick going to be there from Crop this weekend?
Yes. Rick from Crop will be joining us again like he does every year, and we're happy to have him.
Okay. And it's interesting that people can ask the manufacturer questions, because so many times, I know in Bob's case, they did a lot of custom building. And many times when you have the manufacturer right there, I know in Bob's case, he wanted his bathroom a little bit different, and he wanted to put a certain type of tub or an enclosure in that, wasn't the standard. But when you're dealing with the manufacturers, you do get that opportunity to customize.
They are very customizable, and as you mentioned, it is very handy to have a factory rep to be able to answer those questions. Although doing this with prop for, I pretty well know what the customization is.
Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing that people need to understand here, because when you say, 10 by 40, it's 400 square feet. Many times you can get 2 bedrooms out of this, even if you don't own the family, if you don't even add on a sunroom. Describe a little bit about that, because I think it's a unique feature and one that I've seen kids really, really love. Describe what I'm referring to, would you?
Yeah, so there are actually 2 and 3 bedroom park models with them. And you wouldn't think, like you say, that you can get that in 400 square feet, rather. It's usually a bunk room with a wardrobe. Sometimes it's actually another second full bedroom with another queen bed.
Okay, but it's interesting how they will drop one end of the foundation, if you will, so they can get another bedroom above it. Certainly not something that adults would be utilizing, but for kids who it's bigger than a crawl space, but something that kids would really enjoy.
Well, and that's for a lot to an actual second bedroom, which was what I was referencing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So describe the loft as well, would you?
So a loft area is a small upstairs portion. As you mentioned, they are a little larger than a crawl space, but they do give plenty of space for extra sleeping and storage. It's a great place for kids to play or watch TV or play games.
And as Bob has mentioned here, I think you can probably hear us. He might be watching on his cell phone now, because so many people do watch us on cell phones. We want to tell you that if you've just joined us, we're talking with Linda from Seacoast RVs on Route 1 in Saco, Maine. It's their big 24th. Doesn't it seem like yesterday? Isn't it kind of crazy that you're saying 24 already, Linda?
I know, and it doesn't really seem possible that I could be celebrating 24 years.
When you're only 37 years old.
Exactly.
Okay. But you know what? They're a great place, and I've gone up there, and whenever I'm in Maine, I always get my propane refilled there, because they have professionals that know how to put propane in properly. And Linda, talk about your store. We're moving from the resort back to the dealership now. That store is almost like a superstore. So even if you don't have a park model, but you have a traditional RV, a travel trailer, or a motorhome, the store that you have there can kind of take care of everyone's needs.
Absolutely. We actually have the largest parts store in the state of Maine at 10,000 square feet. And we have everything from O-rings to actual water heaters, refrigerator, satellite dishes, and everything.
Toilets.
And you know what?
Yep.
Toilets and mattresses are something that people with RVs should change on a somewhat routine basis. Because
why is that, Linda?
A lot of you.
Why? Because of just the use and the possible breakage?
Yeah. And particularly with the toilet, and you're talking about the chemicals, and they're generally plastic, those things tend to have a shelf life.
Mm-hmm. You deal with both Dometic and Thetford?
Absolutely. And a new toilet is as little as $160.
Right. And the thing, when we were just down at Majors last week, Jerry, I think talking with Jerry about the toilets down there, those porcelain ones, they're just like a toilet at home. I mean, obviously the water is different, but they're sturdy, I should say.
They are, and that is definitely the better way to go if you can afford a small step up in the porcelain bowl. And it does have a regular house toilet, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I said to you, Saco, and then we talked about Old Orchard. Old Orchard is really a worldwide destination, especially for our friends from Canada. Do you know the length of the beach, how long the beach is, and talk about some of the other attractions that are nearby the facility that you've got there?
Old Orchard Beach is one of the best beaches, in my opinion, in the world, and a lot of traveling. It's 7 miles of pure sandy beach. And it's a wide beach. You can walk.
That's right, it is. It is.
Yeah.
So wide that in the fall they even have an air show and they land airplanes. Right, one of the charities.
Year round, which is great.
Yep, yep. See, Bob's showing some more of the other pictures. Linda, can you see those pictures?
I can.
Yep. Could you describe? Now, we had a kitchen there, but I believe we could see residential ranges and residential refrigerators, and I think that's important because when people are camping out, quote unquote camping out, or they're on their leisure time, having the capability to cook and consume beverages is important, and you're not picking them out of a tiny little RV refrigerator.
It's important to stay hydrated. Absolutely, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And these park
stay hydrated.
full-size appliances.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, pricing. One of our viewers asked about price. You know, I know they go. There's a wide range, but as I alluded to before, I think they're one of the best values in the entire RV industry. Talk about the units that you've got up there now, Linda, as to what they would start and go to.
Sure. So the price ranges on the park models themselves start at $50,000 and go up to around $70,000 or so.
Okay.
And when you're
so there's a little bit of
room on that, usually adds about another 20 to maybe 30,000.
Adding the sunroom on, okay. So, and as far as going back to your resort is concerned, is it a circumstance where you're paying you a rental fee, or how does the cost of going into the park work?
Yeah, it is the same as any other seasonal campsite that you might rent. There is a once annual fee at our resort, $4,350 for the year.
And that includes what, Linda?
That includes city water, city sewer, cable TV. The only thing that you pay for is your gas and internet.
Okay. And by gas, people have the propane tanks that are supplied. They're not underground gas, right?
Precisely. Propane.
Right, the tanks. You know, that's interesting that you say city sewer and city water, especially city water, because so many times you hear of circumstances where campground water might, you know, because it's not used annually and come from a private source. City water gives you a little bit more of a feeling of security, would it not?
It does, and actually that's why when we started this resort property, we paid to run private city sewer and private city water way down the street and into the resort property. Because our resort is a rural area, those utilities were not there. We paid to run them down the street.
Okay. So let's go back to the open house again. What will people be finding there? I know that we talked before, and you said you got the hot dogs and you got the food and that kind of stuff. But are they you doing any prize giveaways or anything along those lines, or is there a discount in the store during the time that people are there?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, this event is actually customer appreciation event. That's how we've always That's how we've always built it. It's for us to say thank you to the people who have given us business over the years. We look forward to continuing to earn your business. And one way that we reward them this weekend is everything in the store is 50% off, as well as special order. So if you had your eye on something have in stock, we'll allow you to carry that 15% discount to any special order item.
Okay. I think we should also say, and forgive me if I've said this, or I know I asked you this before, but there are several other RVs and travel trailers that are available for sale that are in your lot. So you don't have to feel that if park models are not your bag, that there's no reason to go. You have a lot of trade-ins, and there's some consignment units that are there as well. And roughly, if people go to your website, is there a way to find out what's available at any particular time?
Yeah, that's the nice thing that I really appreciate about our website is we keep all of our inventory line, including detailed photos of the interiors, the exteriors, and the prices as well.
Okay, so there's no surprises. People pretty much know what's going on.
That's
I mean,
exactly.
they know what they're going on. Okay, so somebody comes up. Give me some restaurant suggestions. People come up there and they want seafood. I know I'm going to put you at risk here for picking one place out for another, but I mean, you can get a good lobster roll around there, right?
You can. One of my favorite places for a really casual spot is called Jumpin' Jake's on Saco Avenue.
Jumpin' Jake's.
They have a
Okay,
great
I know Bob.
The weather is really nice. There's no better spot.
And Bob always talks about that ice cream place that's on Route 1 up almost in Dunston Corners up there.
He may be referencing the Dairy Corner, but we have a newer place in town called Fielder's Choice.
Called what?
Called Fielder's Choice.
Oh,
Sorry,
interesting.
Dairy, but it's shoulders above.
Okay, and Zagami would be very remiss if I forgot to mention this. There's a new donut shop that's opened up in your neck of the woods, huh?
There is a new Dunkin' Donuts, yes, right off the highway.
Yeah, and I was thinking of another one, Crispy.
Oh, there is a Krispy Kreme's on Route 1 in Saco.
That people drive miles and miles to get to. And the other thing I know up there, because I'm talking about, when I like to go to Maine, I think of a good time. And I know the sign used to say, "Welcome to Maine Vacation Land." Now it says what? The way life should be. As soon as you drive up 95, the way life should be. Is that what the big sign says?
It is, and it's true. It is the way life should be.
But you guys also have a drive-in theater.
We do. In Saco, yes. Just a couple of years ago, they upgraded to all new digital projectors.
Ah, okay. Interesting. Bob is trying to send some messages. Did you see the notes that he's got down below there? I know that he'd have many questions for you because he is, in fact, a customer of yours. And he knows RVs, from start to finish, from Elkhart to Winnebago, out in where are they? In Iowa, etc. But he has picked your place and your units as the place where he has invested his own personal money. And I think that speaks volumes that somebody who's that knowledgeable about the industry has chosen to go the park model route.
Bob is quite an RV enthusiast, and he is just a dynamo. We are pleased to have him at property. He's always a positive influence, and we appreciate his friendship as well.
Yeah, exactly. So we are beyond our time. We try to keep it a half hour. It's a little bit over a half hour. He said, "I've lost both of you." So here's what I'm gonna do. He's texting me. This is so funny because we're so we are ready to close the show, Bob. This is going to be one of our most watched shows.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know what? When you run into the technical stuff, it's it. But I give him credit. Now he's got to go on another show tonight that goes that emanates from Texas. He might have to leave the airport and go find a local tavern to do that show on. Okay, go ahead and close it out. Okay, I'm going to close it out, but I don't know how to end the show. But we'll see what happens here. But Linda, we want to thank you so much for being with us. We'll laugh about this in a couple of weeks when we come up and say hello. But tell us once again where you're located and what days the open house is going to be.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, John. Thank you very much. The open house is this Saturday and Sunday. Our hours on Saturday are 9 to 5 and Sunday are 10 to 3. And we'll be happy to have anyone who wants to come on down. We have prize giveaways every 20 minutes and a free hot dog lunch as mentioned on both days from 11 to 2.
Great. Linda, thank you so much. And I know that you are busy getting ready for your setup because it's not something you just show up for on Saturday morning. You guys put a lot of work into this, and we're happy that you were able to spend this time with us tonight, just a few days before your big open house. So with that being said, join us again next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. I plan on being in Worcester, Massachusetts. The Lord only knows where Bob Zagami will be. For the last 3 weeks, he's been in Texas, New York, Florida. I was in Canada a couple weeks ago. Oh, here's Dawn. You know Dawn. Do you know Dawn? Dawn is joining us from North Carolina. Dawn Polk, You ever met
yeah, sure.
Dawn and Mark? They do the RV 101. So Dawn, we have lost Zagami. I should admit that it was my plot to get rid of Zagami and take over the show. So, by the way, we've changed the name of the show from Bob and John. This is the John DePietro RV Hour with my special guest, Linda. Linda, you could come back as co-host next week because you have good internet set up there.
Well, you know, I have to because we have no idea where Bob will be.
Well, I mean, he's supposed to fly back tonight at a certain time after he does his other national show. But we want to thank you so much. I'm going to hit stop camera. That may end the show. Ladies and gentlemen, if the show continues, after this, we're not responsible for what you hear. Okay.
Anything could happen, folks.
I'm going to close now. I'm going to say close now. This is so funny. We'll have to talk about this later. So, ladies and gentlemen, this for the final time, the final score for the final time is Linda 1, John 1, Bob 0. We'll see you again for RVing in New England next week. Have a great day, everybody.
Good night.